I am your host for the session, Ritika Pota from IMAI. Welcome to the panel discussion on Are India's online skill gaming regulatory and policy guidelines adequate? We would like to begin by thanking you all for being a part of GATO 2021, Digital Gaming the Next Leap. We would like to thank our partners, title partner Games 24/7, powered by Apps Flyer in association with TrackHere, Platinum partner OnePlus, content delivery partner Limelight Network, supported by Invest India, and our knowledge partner RedSir. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Pankaj Doval, Senior Editor, Times of India, who will moderate today's discussion. Joining us today, we have a distinguished set of leaders. Please welcome Ms. Shweta Rajpal Kohli, Chief Public Policy Officer, Sequoia Capital India and Southeast Asia, Suhan Mukherjee, Founding Partner, PLR Chambers, and Dinkar Vashishtu, Vice President, Corporate Affairs, Games 24/7. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions on the question and answer chat box, and the panel will address the few. Over to you, Mr. Doval. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very glad to be here at the IMAI Gaming Summit, GATO 2021. And while, honestly, gaming may come easy to many, and gaming is surely the hot word when it comes to being chased by the VCs and the investors. But trust me, gaming is increasingly getting a very complex subject when it comes to regulatory matters. I remember I had done a story a couple of weeks back. What is the real issue in within gaming right now, and it is all about whether gaming is based on skill or whether gaming is based on chance. If it's skill, it's good. If it's based on chance, then it's seen as gambling, and then a lot of regulatory hurdles come in the way, including courts and state governments as well. We've seen that the gaming industry has been trying to speak about this issue very vehemently, and also discussing with various regulators and state governments, and there have been certain kind of legal victories, as they would call it, over the past few weeks. But are we really out of it, or is it still a very big issue right now? Because as gaming that is gaining a lot of investments at this point in time, it's growing at a breakneck speed, especially after the pandemic. We've seen gaming roughly touch, as per estimates, $2 billion, and over 400 million people are hooked on to gaming, as one would call it. There are various kinds of gaming. There is fantasy gaming, there is casual gaming, and everything is growing at this point in time. But there is a regulatory vacuum, whether it comes under the central laws, whether it comes under the state laws. And to discuss all this, I have a very, very distinguished and a very experienced panel. I think they've been introduced just now. Dinkar and Shweta are former journalists, and also right now in very senior positions. Dinkar is vice president at Games 24/7. He handles corporate affairs. Shweta Rajpal Kohli is the chief public policy officer at Sequoia Capital. And Suhan Mukherjee is a legal guy, so he's a partner at PLR Chambers, and his expertise is law, public policy, and government affairs. So, welcome all. Let me just straight away get into the issue that it's a very complex issue at this moment, isn't it? Dinkar, if I start with you, because you are the guy who's actually out there protecting your company, making things easier for your company. We've had discussions even before that. There have been certain legal victories, so to say. Are we still out of it, or are we in the middle of it right now in terms of regulatory issues?
Thank you, Pankaj. In fact, that is what the predicament is, because you said in your opening comments that there have been some significant victories in the recent past. In fact, the significant victories go back long back. They go back to the Chamal Bagwala case in 1950s, which was a judgment by the Constitutional Bench.
Yeah.
A lot of investments in gaming sector would not have been possible or would not have been made by a lot of players if this jurisprudence was not unequivocally clear that games of skill are not akin to gambling. So it is
Yeah.
this. So in that context, we have at the Chamal Bagwala case a constitutional bench judgment. The second Chamal Bagwala case We had the Satyanarayan case. We had several cases. Pretty much punctuated at every decade, coming and sort of reaffirming the jurisprudence of India that games or skills are not gambling. Despite that, now that some state governments seem to think the otherwise. So that is, of course, creating a lot of consternation for the industry and a lot of problems for the industry. So yeah, that's where the problem is, that despite the clear jurisprudence, state governments don't see it that way.
Suhan, thank you. Suhan, coming to you, it is a very subjective thing whether you call that, if supposing there's a game based on IPL where you're choosing your own teams, whether whatever you choose is based on a skill, or is it kind of, just a chance that, I am betting on this thing, betting in the sense that I'm taking a chance on these particular players and they will win. So, it can be looked at both the ways. How do you distinguish between, a very game-based, skill-based kind of a thing that the person has done his research and done all the homework and all about the weather, players, their performance, or whether it's just chance, it's just a multiple choice question and you're just taking a chance. How do you distinguish between that?
So I think actually it's pretty easy to distinguish, and the law is very, very clear. I think what we aren't able to distinguish is our own morals as a society, in a sense. And it's in that situation that you find a lot of sectors which, though legitimate in law, are necessarily treated as gray. So if you look at the fact, as a nation, we can't make up our minds whether we should have prohibition or we should have alcohol industry. But we, in the same way, this sector, the law, as Dinkar just said, is absolutely clear that it is permitted. You are allowed to play for stakes and you're allowed to place bets if they happen to be games of skill. However, the confusion that's arising nowadays is, and most recently in the case in Jungly Games India case in the High Court at Madras, what you saw was a clear, unequivocal statement saying that the word gaming under Indian law is associated with gambling. And I think very often the terminology that we use leads to a lot of confusion. And we need to start getting our semantics right so that both governments, the public, the regulators, the courts, and our industry itself is able to necessarily come on the same page. Because law, regulation essentially is about words, semantics, definitions. And I think we need to set our house in order because in order to come within, within the white in this side, and ask governments to start defining and recognizing games of skill. Today, there is no administrative mechanism that allows us to recognize games of skill. So you end up going to the courts after there is regulatory action. So we have to shift to a framework where there is administrative recognition of games of either being of skill or of chance.
I think it's a big challenge to get the governments think on the same with the same view, because at this point in time, as I understand, this matter is being discussed at the IT ministry, at the sports ministry, and even at the prime minister's office, for that matter. It is all, they are all looking into the issue, and everybody is juggling the ball between each other. But Shweta, as somebody who's coming from the investing community, how do you make decisions? Because Suhan said a few things which I generally would refrain to say. He brought in alcohol and prohibition, and gaming is sometimes also equated to kind of a sin for that matter. Or he used the word bets, for example. Again, if you use the word bets and gaming, then again it becomes kind of it's moved into a dangerous territory. So when you look at gaming as an industry to invest, for sure it's very lucrative. Valuations are going up. People are coming in large numbers, but one wrong judgment and everything goes for a toss. So there are kind of risks also. So how do you assess all these situations?
Right, Pankaj, interesting question there. And of course, there are risks in every aspect of technology that, venture capital firms like Sequoia invest in, because remember one principle: innovation will always precede regulation. So, you look at traditionally any of the sectors in within the larger tech space that have disrupted, that have been category creators. Would you say that those were all sectors that had regulations well in place and well defined before we could see a case of regulations being put in place? Absolutely not. So there will always be a stage and phase of evolution where we're going to see first the technology coming in, first the innovation coming in, and then eventually regulations following. Just to answer your question very specifically around online gaming and digital gaming, let me respond by saying that yes, in India the issue has become way more complex and complicated than one could have imagined, with several states taking a different stance. There are states that have licensed digital gaming, there are states that are on the other end of the spectrum and have totally banned digital gaming, and yet there are states that are still understanding what this issue is. I think it is very pertinent for the legal community led by the likes of Suhan, the policy community, policy professionals like Dinkar and me, to constantly engage with policymakers and with governments to educate them and to help them understand this sector. Is this a sunrise sector for India? Absolutely yes. Has the Prime Minister himself understood and recognized this as a sector that will be important for India, that will put India on the global map? Absolutely yes. Just look at the kind of tech talent that we have when it comes to the game developers community. I mean, it's an obvious one that India will be a hub for digital gaming given the tech talent that we have. Will it be a hub as far as the consumers are concerned? Once again, a big yes, and that's where investors like ours come in from. Because if you look at it from the lens of the kind of market that exists in India, the internet penetration, the mobile penetration that we're seeing, absolutely fantastic when it comes to the kind of growth and potential that this sector has. Now, to very quickly answer your point around regulations, I think we continue to be very optimistic that better sense will prevail when it comes to understanding that this is a sector that is in dire need of sensible, light touch regulations, perhaps even a self-regulatory model, if not heavy-handed regulations coming in from the government. Does the sector want to be regulated? Absolutely yes, because it's important that we give sanctity to digital gaming, to online gaming, and take away the negative connotation, as Dinkar and Suhan were pointing out, from gaming and betting, from gambling and betting. The fact that we have equated gaming with gambling and betting, I think, is the biggest mistake that has happened as far as any tech sector is concerned. And I think we need to now understand, and what is very heartening is that right at the top, you've got the IT Minister, Ashwini Vaishnav. We understand from reports saying that there is a case to have a uniform approach towards digital gaming. And we believe it's just a matter of time when we will see way more positive outcomes coming out.
Yeah, no, I'm sure with the new minister also looking into it, there is something positive that comes out of it. And it is, as you say, it's very heartening to see people coming in large numbers. But it will also be heartening for people like Dinkar to see the valuations go up. And there are companies that are talking about 3 billion, 4 billion kind of valuations. So as Sequoia, have you been able to place your bets at the right time, or have you been just sitting on the fences and looking at the valuations go up and waiting for your chances to make investments? How deeply entrenched are you in terms of investments in the gaming sector in India?
Yeah, so I will not comment very specifically on our investment strategy, because that remains very, very crucial to our overall business model. But what I could say is that we are very enthused with the digital gaming sector, and we have made significant investments already. There are interesting companies in our portfolio that are doing very meaningful work, not just in terms of digital gaming, but also in promoting esports in the country. And that's the reason why we believe that, as you had mentioned, that it is not a sector that impacts just one ministry. It's a sector where we expect the government to come and take a holistic approach, because just look at what technology and what the pandemic has done to multiple sectors. Now look at EdTech, for instance. Who could have imagined that EdTech would have seen the kind of growth that it has seen over the last 2 years? So in many ways, what we didn't see happen for decades happened in a matter of weeks, because overnight millions of children were studying online. Education as a technology, education being delivered by way of technology was suddenly acceptable. It was a mindset change. Similarly, look at sports as an industry. Today, esports is real, and there are companies that are looking at making huge investments. You talk about esports stadiums, you talk about this coming up as an entirely new sector, as well as a new sport, as a new industry. And are we saying that India is not going to open up and be progressive about the kind of opportunities the technology is bringing with it, whether it is in terms of fantasy or it is in terms of pure esports? So my sense is that yes, as investors, we value certainty, and it's very important for the investor community to see certainty in regulations. Uncertainty is something which never bodes well for a sector. But are we willing to say that yes, eventually regulations will fall in place? Eventually, governments and policymakers and regulators will be very sensible in understanding that there is a revenue potential for the country, there is a revenue potential for states, there is a potential for sectors like these to become in many ways sunrise sectors for India, sectors that India will be known for. And I think that realization is there. We're still at an evolution stage where we will arrive at the right answers. Is this supposed to be parented by the sports ministry or the IT ministry? Are we looking at central level guidelines? Are we looking at a law? Are we looking at an act? What is it that needs to be put in place to give regulatory sanctity to this industry, something that will follow eventually?
Right. Dinkar, coming back to you, when it comes to all the confusion around regulatory matters related to gaming, are we just being misunderstood, or are the real issue, are the issues very real in the sense that there are issues with the industry? If not certain companies, but there would be companies who are also engaging in betting and gambling and things like that, which gets into the illegal territory. So is that issue also real, or is it only being misunderstood?
So I think there are two aspects of question, Pankaj. First is that, what is harmful or what is pernicious is always relative. Remember at one point of time, football was banned in Scotland and, England. Chess, which is nobody's idea of, gambling or whatever, is construed as gambling in Saudi Arabia and is banned by the, the Supreme Leader over there. So, whatever is pernicious as, or, wasteful or, addictive is relative. Having said that, I think it will be disingenuous on my part to say that, there are no problems. Yes, because, the barriers to entry to the sector are low. We have seen a feat of entry of, various players, right? Now, there are 400 players in the sector. But then that's a part of the natural evolution of, any industry. Eventually, you will see this completely and, creative destruction happening in the industry, and people will consolidate. And for that consolidation to happen, for genuine players to emerge, who have the proper code of conducts and everything, you need a proper regulatory structure in place. You need like a sort of formalization of industry. And in that context, I think this is one of the very unique industries, sunrise sectors we have, which is actively reaching out to the government to regulate us. Yes, not the other. Please don't give us a carte blanche. Please regulate us. So hopefully, I think government will see our perspective, and we are prepared for a long haul. We are very confident in a way that since we are backed by jurisprudence, not only jurisprudence. Some people can say that esoteric jurisprudence doesn't matter, but it has also been substantiated by credible academic research. With that, some of the games which are right now in the eye of storm cannot be construed as gambling by any stretch of imagination. So we rest our case in that sense.
That's interesting that the industry has been asking the government for regulation. The government seems to be kind of, developing cold feet, deciding who has to manage it. But as per you, is it a case of IT ministry? Is it a case of sports ministry? There have been even debates that it should be handed over to the INB ministry because content could be something which could be troublesome. So who should be, as per, you are a gaming company, who do you think should get the mandate to do the parenting, as Shweta called it? Who should it be?
I think, Pankaj, that's not my prerogative. I think that is entirely a prerogative of the government. But yes, I think one problem definitely is there that because gaming has recently evolved or recently come into existence, the concurrent list or the central list or the state list never envisaged this as a sector, as a sort of a distinct entity. So that is the reason we have seen it getting hyphenated with gambling and betting and something like that. So I think my request to the government would be to relook at that. How does it happen? Whether you bring about a constitutional amendment, whether the sports ministry look at it, whether the IT ministry look at it, or maybe all of them collectively look at it. I think that is government's prerogative. But yes, I think gaming, this acceptance that gaming is a recent development, and it was not foreseen at the time when the Constitution was written or these lists were made. I think that thinking can happen.
collective would be
Pankaj, I'd be
interesting.
happy to come in to
Yeah,
respond
please,
to
Swan,
that
please, please.
question.
Yeah.
I think there is no simple straight answer in this. I think we will have to live with an environment which is kind of hybrid, where there will be roles for the center and certain ministries in the center, and the states cannot be wished away. Because the reality is that when the line on legality is going to be determined by states, apart from the games of skill framework. See, all state regulation essentially provides exemptions to games of skill. So, if you look at the ride-hailing industry also, which came under the Motor Vehicles Act, but there were central guidelines on the technical side, that's how gaming is necessarily going to evolve. I think the IT ministry, and I don't think we should be asking for an act. If we ask for an act, we'd get locked in. It would kill the innovation. I think what we need to look at is that the exemptions for games of skills remain on the books in the online space in states. We look to the Ministry of IT to bring out regulation as part of rules to set standards so that there's uniformity on the technology side in terms of random number generation certificates, no bot certifications, grievance redressals, and things like that. And obviously, you will have the sports ministry and others coming in because of the fact that esports is a massive industry. But we won't be able to shy away from the broad buckets of games of skill and games of chance. And therefore, the states have to have a role. And it will be engagement, engagement, engagement. And Shweta would be familiar with this. The ride-hailing industry to stabilize. And even today, it's not stabilized, but it has become an industry that you live with every day, where there has been the role both of the center as well of the states. I remember the times when Karnataka, Delhi, and a couple of other states banned ride hailing. So this industry is coming out of the cold. I think asking for acts will kill innovation. We need to be looking at rules and guidelines.
Right.
Let the industry, go through its maturity model. But why we need rules and regulations is to cut out that gray, those that are misusing the access to this market. As Dinkar just said, the barriers to entry are low. We need to have targeted removal of bad actors. And I think that's what most of the industry, which is legitimate, in behind whom there is investment and innovation, is asking for.
So, Swan, what kind of bad actors are you referring to? Like, which are the things that you think should be tackled by the government? Which are the areas you think the government
So,
should
I mean, the reality is, if you set down technical standards on KYCs and how you need to follow the payments frameworks, all of that, I think those that are trying to make a quick buck will leave the industry. You also need to be able to clearly identify what is gambling. Direct the center as well as states to target sites which are actually violating the law, because most people already know that, but unfortunately everyone's put into the same bucket, and law enforcement agencies don't have guidance beyond a point, so they go with a sledgehammer approach, shotgun approach, so you hit everybody else. We need to be able to train law enforcement in states. We need to be able to create guidelines and SOPs for how they can understand who is a bad actor and who isn't. And then you will eventually need to go to shut down these sites. So you see states writing into the Department of Telecom as well as the IT ministry asking for sites to be blocked. Most of these are offshore betting and gambling sites. They don't have anything to do with the legitimate industry of gaming and skill games. And we need to be able to address that squarely and in a deliberate manner. And I'm sure industry will also be participating in that, in assisting the cleanup. Because that's what augurs well for everybody else who's running a legitimate business.
Yeah. Shweta, in fact, this regulatory issue you would have seen even in Uber, where it was, being decided whether it is a tech company or a transport company, whether it falls under Motor Vehicles Act, IT Act, or whatever. But coming to valuations of, you said that this is kind of a very lucrative sunrise sector, gaming in India, because obviously data prices are very low, the mass base is very big. How are we? How is gaming in India in terms of how is it looked at in terms of valuation? Then how do you compare it to some of the Western countries or developed countries? Have we reached those scales, or is it very early days right now?
Definitely early days, but growing at a phenomenal pace. And as I had mentioned, that we have just the perfect market for this industry to thrive. Given the young population, given the mobile and internet penetration that we're seeing, it is an industry that is here to stay and here to thrive. And when we talk about valuations, firms like ours are never looking for quick exits. The idea is that you are more interested in building out a sector, building out a company, staying with them in the long run. I think that is what is way more heartening and satisfying, because you help create an entire category, you help build and as well as sustain an entire category, and that's a way more meaningful work. And I think as part of my role in public policy is also that engagement and education of policymakers. And as both you and Suhan rightly mentioned, we've seen that evolution take place on ride hailing. When ride hailing services like Uber and Ola came into the country, there was absolutely lack of understanding on how to regulate them, whether to regulate them. And as you said, is it a transport service, is it a tech service? Even in terms of GST, there was ambiguity on how should you tax and regulate a sector like this. But that's the whole excitement, challenge, as well as pain points that is important for us to help resolve with policymakers. Are we going to see new industries and sectors not getting created? Of course they will. Now, to respond to Suhan's point, I 100% agree that I think at some point what we require is central level guidelines. Because are we going to say that overnight states should wash their hands off the sector and stop regulating or engaging? Perhaps not, because if nothing else, this is also a big revenue earner for the state. So we cannot forget the fact that states are set to benefit, whether it's in terms of job creation or it's in terms of revenues. They are the ones that will also reap the benefits of this sector. But I think it is very important that we do not drag this for too long before we see the center step in and bring out those necessary guidelines, which will at least give some sort of reassurance to states that the center recognizes and gives sanctity to this industry, and it is not to be equated with gambling and betting as painting everyone with the same brush. So the minute we're going to see some broad level guidelines coming out, that sort of becomes a foundation. And to answer your question, I think at this point the IT ministry is best suited to step up on its role and take it on. And as Suhan also said, that we will see sports ministry involved, because there is a large element of esports in this. But at the end of the day, if we see the IT ministry step up and say, you know what, digital gaming is part of the technology evolution of this country. It is something which is real. It does come with policy challenges, but we're here to address that. Have in place self-regulatory codes as well as guidelines and mechanisms that take care of some of the policy concerns that regulators and policymakers have. And there are genuine concerns, and I don't think the industry is shying away from it. The industry is very well seized of those issues and wants to take them on and solve for those issues, as Dinkar will tell you himself. But I think not addressing it for too long is definitely going to lead to a lot of mess that we're seeing right now. The only bit that I would differ with Suhan on is on this whole classification of games of skill and game of chance. While that seems to have become the best way of understanding how to give some sort of sanctity and legality to this industry, my fear is that if we go on too long about this classification, it'll get very, very difficult for platforms as well as games to constantly prove that they are a game of skill and they're not a game of chance. And this constant need to go back to courts to try and get that sanctity for every game and every platform and every model and every category will become a pain point as we go forward. Do we have another better answer right now? Perhaps not. And that's something we need to arrive at. But I'm not sure if this constant classification is going to help the industry in the long run. One last point I'm going to make very quickly. It's very important that we take this industry as a whole. We're seeing very often that there are pockets within the industry that are asking for regulations, whether it's fantasy or it's esports or it's rummy and poker. We need to understand that we need a holistic approach to the digital gaming sector. And that is where governments can only come in, because at the end of the day, everyone is talking about subcategories and saying, you know what, my category is fine, give me legal approval. But that creates a lot of problem in the mind of a regulator who wants to regulate an entire sector and not a subcategory.
No, pretty well spoken. Dinkar, what is the seriousness that you receive when you go and speak to the to the policymakers, be it in state governments or be it in central governments? And I'll not ask you to name the particular governments, but do they see gaming as child's play still, or do they understand that it is turning into a very serious industry in terms of revenues, in terms of, as Shweta called it, sunrise industry. And also there's a whole lot of ecosystem with this. You've got developers and graphic designers and things like that. So, it spawns a completely new IT industry in itself. Do they take it as seriously as it should be taken, or it is still very early days for them as well, and they see gaming as something, which can be taken care of later? So, are you guys taken seriously?
So we definitely taken seriously, Pankaj, and the government policymakers at the senior most levels are appreciative of of gaming. They also understand the fact that if given the right support, gaming can spawn a second software revolution in India. It has a lot of benefits, a lot of related industries, whether it is animation, whether it is payment gateways, so on and so forth. So that's there, but they also realize that there are certain political realities, and political realities sometimes can translate into a sort of a very different outcome. So I think there's a mismatch between the political realities and the bureaucratic and the technocratic acumen of the government. So, and I think it is anybody's guess that how long it will take to bridge that. And as regards that, the appreciation of gaming as a sector, I think the fountainhead himself has spoken. Honorable Prime Minister, and I think Mann Ki Baat last year said that, with the right support, gaming can start the next software revolution in India. And he exhorted the Indian gaming sector to come out with games which are reflective of Indian culture and Indian ethos. So in his mind, at least, that he's very clear that he sort of used gaming as a sector which has an immense potential. Now, what is the right sort of solemn act for that, or what is the right legal language for that? That I think that clarity will take some time to come.
Suhan, you like what is the legal position when it comes to gaming and children? Is there a particular age at which they can be part of this community, or they can start at any age? Because recently I was reading an article, I think it was based out of South Korea or China, that they said that gaming is almost become so addictive that it is almost like a drug for children, and all their attention is focused on that, and then it takes them away from real issues. I mean to say, they should be going out and playing as well and things like that, but they're just hooked on to online gaming. Is there any particular age or regulatory issue when it comes to children in gaming?
So I think where there is a very clear bright line is that obviously children cannot be participating in any gaming that requires the real money. Whether that I would say whether it's an in-app purchase or whether it is somebody playing for stakes. So there it's very, very clear you have to be an adult, and I would say that that's what the industry also stands for. With regard to other areas where we are looking at addiction, exposure to violence, and things like that, I think we don't see any regulation as yet here in India, but I think industries would need to take a harms approach. There is well-developed principles at a global level, and I think industry would do well to be able to bring in those principles. And of course, the addiction framework, whether you're a child or an adult, obviously children are far more vulnerable. One would need to take a precautionary principle and look at that. I don't think you need to have very strong arm regulation or laws bringing that out, but I think there should be principles and guidelines and redressal mechanisms for parents, and parental controls and parental checks, which you've seen on in the social media side. And those technology controls which are there on platforms can also be introduced on the gaming side as well, so that there is oversight. Because eventually, as long as there are parents involved and there is guardianship that's exercised, that's a safe space for children. So that's the approach that I would suggest.
So I really don't know how many parental controls actually work when it comes to social media and children. Dinkar, how do you guys
and classification? Sorry, there is a very, very complex framework of classification of games also overseas, on looking at violence, sex, etc. And I think that is something that would need to be also developed here in India.
Yeah. So Dinkar, actually, how do you tackle these issues of violence and sex and extreme addiction towards gaming, and especially how do you control that there are certain kinds of parental control in this area? Because because of all this study from home and stay at home, every child today has a phone in their hand and every child has got internet connection. it's very difficult to actually ensure that the proper hygiene is maintained when it comes to the young minds and the impressionable minds. How do you guys do that?
So Pankaj, my company is Remit is essentially real money gamings. So in that context, I can clearly say that we have very strong mechanisms to sort of ensure that underage players do not participate in that, and it is a multi-level sort of checks which one has to go through. Not only underage players, there are elaborate mechanisms to protect addictive behavior. There are advanced softwares, and algorithms which sort of suspect any suspicious behavior, impulsive behavior. So all those checks are in place. And in fact, as a part of the industry body, we have sort of codified that also and shared with respective governments that would this be a part of the larger policy that you are making. So we are at the forefront, whether it is using behavioral economics, whether it is using algorithms, or whether it is using technological gate checks, everything. We are more than willing to sort of participate with governments, with payment gateways, and with society, when it comes to sort of framing these laws. Having said that, Pankaj, one thing I like to also introduce is that a lot of problems which are attributed to gaming, they are not substantiated by statistics. They are rather anecdotal in their sort of this evidence is very anecdotal. I had like last year, I had a chance to go through the National Crime Report Bureau statistics of the number of suicides in India, because that is the prevailing theme happening in some certain states. That a lot of suicides are happening because people are playing real money gaming, and this is what the data is right now. 34% of suicides in India happen because of family problems, 8% because of marriage problems, 7% because of mental illnesses, 6% because of drug, alcohol, and 5% because of love affairs. So I'm not discounting anything. What I'm saying is that a lot of evidence which is quoted is anecdotal, and this anecdotal evidence, as Nicholas Taleb would say, sometimes evolves into something else, and it becomes by as tyranny of minority, as as the fancy way of putting it. But so from industry perspective, all the players, all the credible players which have serious investors, have sufficient gate checks, sufficient ways to ensure responsible player behavior.
Perhaps it's easy to blame the gaming industry for a lot of ills. Shweta, how do you guys do your due diligence? Because obviously these issues are real, as we've been discussing, and but on the other side, valuations are also going up. So there is a desperate urge to need to invest also at the right time. But sometimes in that hurry, companies can maybe overlook some of these issues. So, what kind of a due diligence do you do for companies in the gaming sector before you actually put in your money and make your investments? What are the checks that you have?
Sure, Pankaj. I think it's very important that we understand that most companies within the tech space are committed towards responsible use of technology, and I think that's something that we would continue to encourage. And as Dinka was rightly pointing out, that I think it's not that companies are not seized of some of the issues and are not working towards it. And I think what works beautifully in times like these is a self-regulatory code, because it's not that there is a mindless rush towards just growth and profits and valuations. I think that's a very a myopic view of the way whether it's investors or founders or companies or the tech sector is viewing what is happening right now. Yes, of course, there is fantastic growth and there are fantastic valuations. If the industry is seeing phenomenal pace of growth, as well as we do think there is potential. But do you think any of this growth can be sustained without putting in place the necessary checks and balances? Of course not. And I think we would, as part of our overall role in public policy, continue to encourage portfolio companies to ensure that those checks and balances are in place. And especially specifically talking about the digital mobile in the gaming industry, it's important that we do put in place safeguards as well as self-regulatory mechanisms. And I must say that in India, we're already way ahead. If we look at the kind of work some of our portfolio companies as well as other companies within this sector are doing to put in place those necessary safeguards, that we are not breaching what we feel will be those kind of safeguards that are necessary for whether it is protection of children or protection of adults, or making sure that there are limits or there are age limits or there are time limits. All of that is being done as we speak, and all of that is in place, because without that, we cannot see this industry flourish, and we cannot see regulations being put in place that are not heavy-handed, but regulations that are actually guided by a self-regulatory code where companies themselves realize the need to do this.
So, how many proposals do you get, and how many proposals do you actually reject because of some of these issues? I don't know whether you can get into those details, but do you guys also reject proposals because some of the companies may not be meeting the criteria in terms of regulatory environment? Do you also check that?
Pankaj, it's a very, very complex, as well as, we do not absolutely comment on our investment strategy. As you would understand, that not only is this extremely sensitive, but it's also something that we do not share publicly at all. But what I can tell you is that there's obviously a very well laid out process that is in place before any decisions are made. And that process involves a number of factors, and definitely the regulations as well as policy environment would be one of them. But beyond that, it is a strategy that is something we do not discuss publicly.
Right. We're just nearing the end of the discussion. So let me take some last comments. We'll start with Suhan. Suhan, what are your closing thoughts in terms of how far are we from having a proper regulation in this area? Because you guys have been dealing with so many governments and all. Will it take time, and then we have to grow with this kind of an uncertainty, or do you think we are heading towards some kind of a reconciliation wherein some regulation comes into place? Rules.
So, I mean, to answer your question, I think we have regulation where this industry is in the clear. In that sense, it is legal. We may need some clarity because obviously India is a vast country with various, societal and cultures, subcultures and things like that. We need clarity to be able to create investor confidence and for innovation to necessarily take its hold in this sector and to give that impetus for exponential growth. And I'm pretty confident that we should be seeing regulation in states, that are positive even before the end of the year.
And
that can serve as a model. That can serve as a model for other states and the country.
Yeah, and Dinkar, your closing thoughts. Are we out of the woods in terms of the recent judgments and all? They've been very positive for the industry. Do you think that gradually we are coming out of this policy vacuum, policy uncertainty, and now hopefully something can be done soon?
One is never out of woods when it comes to regulatory and policy, Pankaj. So I think it is an ongoing process. Yes, the industry appreciates and values some of the recent judgments that the judiciary of the country and the highest possible judiciaries of the states have seen it the right context. But that does not mean that we are going to sort of take these judgments and do some chest thumping that we have won in the court and now we have a carte blanche. We want to use these judgments and sit and engage with the state governments in formulating a policy which is effective and which is based on the principle that moderation, regulation, and not prohibition leads to better outcomes. So it has to be a win-win-win situation for the industry, for the government, and for the society.
And Shweta, lastly to you, what do you tell your headquarters when it comes to India and regulation? Where are we placed now?
Well, India is complex, India is complicated, India is exciting, India is challenging. And that's why what I always say is tons of patience and perseverance, but it is a phase of evolution. As these industries will mature, so will the regulatory environment, and we will arrive at the right answers. My only, I think, message here to governments as well as regulators and policymakers is please keep the dialogue open. Please allow industry to engage very actively with you, because, while it may seem that, yes, the industry is doing it for a purpose to help itself and to serve itself, it is very important that we get regulations right, because once these regulations are put in place, they will have an impact on the sector for many years to come. And why it's important to continue having very active dialogue and engagement is because nobody understands the sector better than the industry stakeholders themselves. So while policymakers are dealing with tons of issues, it's important that industry continues to be a very important stakeholder when it comes to making these decisions about regulations. And that's why that active engagement has to continue. And as far as the industry is concerned and our portfolio companies, all that I say is that please be in the shoes of the policymakers, understand their pain points, understand the challenges, and what are they trying to solve by this. And if we can provide those solutions as well as educate them and help them understand how to come up with very often tech-based solutions. Very often we don't realize that the solution itself lies in technology. We will arrive at the right answers. So tons of patience and perseverance is the answer, short answer to your question.
No, I think, Shweta, you put it rightly. It's complex, complicated, but it's exciting and challenging as well. And I would say it's also very lucrative. From the policy side, I can surely say, with my limited interaction with the policymakers, they are actually looking at hand-holding. They hold a very positive view, at least at the central level, and hopefully we'll find a proper regulatory framework as well. Thank you all for joining for this discussion. Your views were very, very well articulated. Thanks a lot for the time, and thanks a lot, IAMAI, for this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.